the school has made. And I think coming to within $250,000 and allowing for raises of 3% was a heck of a good job on both the school board side and the Board of Supervisors side. But to change this now with no indication that that was coming, I think is wrong at this point in time.
And I'm willing to have as much discussion as we need right now because we didn't say where that $125,000 in additional revenue would go.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers.
It's always been my understanding that that's the purpose of these discussions when we get to the time when we're approving budgets as well as tax rates is to determine what we feel is going to, if you recall, the rate that was published in the paper was 75 cents. And 77 cents. And we're not even close to that. We're not even close to that.
5 cents more.
5 cent increase. We're not even close to that. In fact, I'm almost at the point where I'm going to withdraw my second to the 72.5 cents. Then let it go from there at that point on. Take it off the floor. We take
that would be happy.
72.5 cents off the floor. I withdraw my second.
That would be
fine. I just don't believe that not generating revenue fixes problems. It does not. And I understand that we had a 4-cent tax increase last year, and we had a 4-cent before. And I think we're probably talking about something like $6, maybe $7 a month as far as revenue to the taxpayer. I don't know very many people that could not afford $5 or $6 a month. I guess the other thing I say is that you get what you pay for. And waiting to fix a problem doesn't mean it's going to be cheaper when you do. I feel like the children in this county deserve that, and I believe the majority of people in this county are willing to sacrifice that, for the school system. And finally, we had our budget hearing, and we were looking at 5 cents. 2 people out of 28,000 came to speak in opposition to the tax increase. 2 people. I'm just saying that I don't believe that people necessarily want a tax increase, but I believe they're willing to sacrifice it for the school system. And as elected officials, it's our job to provide that revenue. And we can't do it without generating funds. Thank you.
So you're saying that is it everybody's idea, proposal, concept, whatever the word is, that if it's 73 cents, the extra 125,000 would go to school?
That was my intent when I made a motion for 73 cents. The 250,000 or 230,000 of the 250 would go to the schools to meet what they requested this year. And I think we get about $247,000 a year for every penny. And my vote or my motion was to give the schools 230 of the 247 at 1 cent increase. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was the thought process behind my motion.
More discussion, Mr. Black?
My thought process was probably a little bit different than Mr. Akers. My thought process when the tax increase was to pay down debt service on a Bowling Green school that's $10.5 million. Thank you.
Mr. Taylor, where did you want your extra penny to go?
I would like to give that extra penny to the school system and have them decide how they would best use that. I worked in the school system for 33 years. I just don't think that it's our job to necessarily tell them what to do. I think it's our job to provide as much as we can. They're elected just like we are, and I believe they're intelligent, and I believe they know how to spend the money that we give them. So for 2 cents, or for 1 penny, which is probably not even $2 a month, I think we could give it to them, and I believe that they are intelligent enough to know where best to put it.
We still appear to be deadlocked, aside from where the extra penny would go. So I'm willing to listen to any ideas we could have to break the deadline. A half-cent compromise, although I didn't want to raise taxes any this year, was a possibility. Then again, if I do a half cent, where does that half cent come from? So we're going to have more discussion or take a break until we can figure out what to do. Mr. Seeley, I didn't hear you again. Did you have anything you wanted to say in the second round of discussion?
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Black?
I will agree to the half-cent compromise as long as that half cent is going debt service towards Bowling Green School. Thank you.
So now I got 3-3 and 3-2-1. Okay. I can adopt the tax rate. It's going to be 72 cents or 73 cents or somewhere in between. And I can't adopt the budget until I adopt the tax rate. I don't think I need to spend a lot of money before I adopt the tax rate. Okay, we'll come back to this. Mr. Culley, tell us, you or Mr. Parton, whoever's handling the schedule for the school referendum, which probably won't be deadlocked at 3-3. But tell us about the schedule and what goes on should the board decide to move forward with the school referendum.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you're well aware, the two boards have had recent discussions about the possibility of a referendum for 25 to 30 million in improvements, capital improvements, principally to Carolina High School and also Madison Elementary School. Tonight's discussion is purely informational, designed to kind of give you an idea about what the process is for moving forward with that and a proposed schedule. To proceed with the referendum, all the board needs to do, as I understand it, is adopt a resolution that would specify the question be placed on the ballot and ask the circuit court to order an election on the question. And there's a sample resolution in the board's packet that gives you an idea of what the language may be. From my research, the referendum question basically reads something to the effect of, should Caroline County, Virginia contract a debt and issue its general obligation bonds in a principal amount not to exceed, in this case, 25 to 30 million, and then you specify the purpose of the bonds. There is no requirement, legal requirement to estimate the impact on the tax rate or the interest rate, but I'm sure the board will want to do that to fully inform voters. I would caution you do need to be careful in doing that because it's subject to change between, of course, the time that the board passes the resolution, the actual referendum, and when the bonds sell. Typically, you would need to leave about 6 months from the time the board adopts the resolution prior to the referendum. There's a timeline, suggested timeline in your board packet. That's based on a referendum in November 2013 to coincide with the gubernatorial election. That could change. It could be a special election. That's a decision the board will have to make. But you do want to adopt the resolution at least 6 months in advance because the court has to petition the Justice Department for approval. So you do need to allow ample time for that process to occur. So in the event the board does want to place the question on the November 2013 election, you're looking at the second meeting in May to adopt the resolution. Concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Parton. Any questions for Mr. Parton at this time about the schedule and the process for a school bond referendum?
I do have a couple questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Parton, you said you think it's not in the best interest to discuss with the taxpayers the impact of the referendum. I know we can't be specific, but don't you agree that an educated citizen is best?
No, to clarify, Mr. Underwood, I said it is in the best interest.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right.
What I meant was you just need to be careful about.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I just misheard what you said.
Mr.
Chairman,
Akers?
have we heard from the school board as to the time frame they would like to have this referendum, whether they would like to have it in the general election? I think we need to get some direction from the school board as to when they would like to have this referendum put on the ballot.
To my knowledge, we've not heard anything from the schools on the timing. No, sir.
We last met, was it the March 26th meeting? Okay. Mrs. Carson's here. Maybe we should try to have another joint meeting to finalize to see what they should do. Is it possible to have, can you check with Dr. Kelo and Mrs. Carson to see if we can meet again in May? Okay. Yeah, but that's our schedule. This was just informational.
Correct.
We have no action to take. We just want to meet with them again to see what date they're going to bring back, and we go forward. All right, thank you, Mr. Parton. That takes care of agenda item number 13. I need a break for 5 minutes, so we're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll be right back. We're going to go back to agenda item number 10, which is the adoption of the tax rate. Have another round of discussion and see where we are. Mr. Taylor, we'll start at this end first.
Again, I support the schools, and I support doing a little bit more for them, and I think we should. Mr. Black talked about paying down the debt. So I was thinking maybe if we looked at 2 cents and we designated a penny to pay down the debt and then a penny to the school system to address the concerns that they had. Because the other thing that's involved here is we're trying to give a 3% raise to all of the employees. And I know what that costs. But the other thing is I do know that there are mandated state positions that they have to come up with. I know that there are at least 2 teaching positions, I think, that are mandated that they have to hire, and they have to pay for that. So we may give them X number of dollars for 3%, but if they are having to add staff and pay for them, then they're not going to be able to give those salary increases to the amount that they would want to. I just believe, again, that the burden to the taxpayer, we're talking maybe $2.50, $3 a month. That's basically what we're talking about. And I just, again, believe that that's not something that taxpayers can't afford. And I believe that taxpayers are willing to go the extra mile to do that if it involves working to give the children in this county a quality education.
Mr. Akers, discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Wait, excuse me, were you finished, Mr.?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Akers?
no, I pretty much, stated my position and what I'd like to see done, whether it's 1 penny or 2 pennies. I won't go any more than 2 cents, but I would like to see us at least partially close that gap, if we cannot completely close that gap of what the school board asked for and what we have agreed to give them. It is as I said earlier, it's the smallest amount that I can remember ever, as far as the difference between what the school board asked for and the board of supervisors said they would give. And I realize we gave them, we didn't give them $800 and some thousand more money this year. It is provided for them, and I understand that, but 264 of that, I believe, is from the state, and 130,000 or something thereabout is due to the fact that we moved the resource officers out of the school board's budget and put them in a separate budget themselves, and did not move the money. So we left the money there for them to use. Right, so I mean, that's another 130. I understand that as well. But I just would like to see us try to close that gap, and I would support anything from a 1 cent to a 2-cent increase, and anything in between.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chairman, I think all of our discussions during the work sessions were around the 3% increase for teachers or for school employees. And after looking at the numbers that we worked on, I believe that was in place. There was enough money to do the 3% pay raise. Am I correct, Mr. Cullen?
Yes and no.
Okay, help me then.
They added at the last work session, we had that dinner meeting, a need for some additional teachers that was over and above what I had included. And so they tended to indicate that they were going to cut the 3% because they had to have those additional 4 teachers that we were not funding. And that's pretty much the makeup of that 230,000 that they asked for additional in that work session. And so those were new numbers that really aren't included. We given them just enough for, now they're getting other state money.
Correct.
So I don't know what they're doing with all of that, but they say with that additional state money, there's still 200, and I thought the number was 230,000, but 200 and some $1,000 short of being able to give the 3%, hire the 4 teachers, and do everything that they need to do with health insurance and other things. That's what was indicated to us at that last work session we had with the school board. So it is true, we felt like we were giving them 3%, but because they feel they have other things that they're obligated to do, that may not be what they're able to do as a school board, is to use the money we're giving them to give a 3%.
Mr. Seeley, are we done, Mr. Underwood? Mr. Seeley?
Mr. Cully, how much did we use out of the fund balance to balance this year's budget?
$716,000. Although, as I went over in the work session the last time we met on this, I don't believe that's going to be. We figure 600 and some thousand into the fund balance. I think that the number I'm really anticipating using out of the fund balance this year will be about 28,000, because we've got new money going in because of proration that the commissioners shared with us. We feel that we've picked up revenue that's unbudgeted in the FY13 that'll go in the fund balance. So we'll take it back out, but it's not going to lower our fund balance by 700,000, only around 28,000.
But right now, that's our plan. Potentially, we could go that far into it. So any additional revenue we get should have, that should have been the discussion in the beginning at the 700,000 level, was the 2 cents should have gone actually that direction. Is that true?
Well, that depends on how you want to look at it. Certainly, you don't want to spend out of the fund balance if you can help it. We put money in the fund balance in 13 due to the cuts that were made last year, and I think it was
502?
532 in 13 into the fund balance based on this budget. Plus, then we have this unbudgeted 600 coming in, so we're really increasing the fund balance by a significant amount. So to draw out the 700 we're talking about really is a net loss of about 28,000.
But we're still using a line of credit to actually carry the county through periods of time.
That is correct.
So the fund balance isn't where it should be.
But it's close.
But my point is we're still spending revenue, that we're spending tax dollars on borrowing money to actually fill in the gaps for the money that we don't have in the fund balance.
That is correct.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, in order to break this deadlock, I will make a compromise to keep it at 72, as long as additional revenue, I think we kind of understand what that is, goes towards the fund balance and possible capital costs. Thank you.
Is that in the form of a motion?
I will make the motion to adopt a 72-cent real estate tax and 380 personal property tax for the fiscal year 2013-2014.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Black, seconded by Mr. Seeley. I'll ask for discussion, but I'm sure we had enough. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Mr. Black, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Akers?
Nay.
Mr. Taylor?
Nay.
And I vote aye. That motion carries 4-2. Agenda item number 11, which is the adoption of the fiscal year budget, which pretty much have the budget finalized now. The tax rate kind of determines how much money we have. We pretty much went through the budget with the work session. There were a couple of items that Mr. Cully had. We'd given him leeway to move money around and work through. Any questions, discussions on the actual budget number?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Akers?
since we were not able to raise additional money for the schools, I think there's probably a possibility that we may have some additional revenue coming in that is not included in the budget. It will not be the $230,000 that the schools need, but I think it would be something in the $150,000 range, something thereabouts. And so my question is, could we increase the money that's going to the schools by $150,000? Out of the fund
He
balance?
said any additional revenue goes to paying down debt service. That's what we just agreed to.
And I'm saying $150,000 goes toward the schools in order to meet what the difference. It's not fund balance. I mean, that's not debt retirement. This is operations. I'm talking about schools.
We did.
We just voted as part of his motion that the additional revenue would go to pay down debt service. Fund balance. Go to the fund balance.
We identified, for everybody to know, in our closed meeting, the possibility of $150,000 in additional revenue. That $150,000 is now what the leverage has been to get a 72-cent tax rate. So if the board would like to vote on the budget, we will entertain a motion on anything on the budget. If you would like to make a motion, Mr. Akers, that says we adopt the budget and give the additional $150,000 worth of revenue we found to the schools, you may do so.
That is my motion.
Mr. Black can make a motion, which he did, or which he can do, to say that $150,000 goes to debt service, or, excuse me, fund balance, to make sure we're okay. So either or, Mr. Akers had the floor. He made a motion to adopt the budget and use the additional $150,000 in revenue for schools.
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Mr. Black?
Nay.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
And I vote nay. That motion fails 4-2. Is there another motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adopt the budget as presented by the county administrator.
And please, for clarity, identify the $150,000.
Oh, and any additional revenue that comes via this budget goes to the general fund.
Fund balance.
Fund balance, sorry, fund balance.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
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 Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Akers?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to change my vote to aye because county needs a budget, and I don't want to be sitting here saying that, hey, I don't support the budget. So the county administrator has worked hard on the budget. I disagree with where the fact is we're not funding the schools the way I think that we have an opportunity to do. But hey, I'm not going to sit here and say no.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Well, I vote nay. And again, I know we need the budget, and since obviously it's going to be 5 people who are going to say they support it, so I guess my vote is more or less a standing vote to say I support the school system, and I just disagree with what we did. So I vote nay.
Vote aye. That motion carries 5-1. So we have a tax rate, we have a budget. We also have 7, 8, 9, and 12 to still do. Let's do 9 since Mrs. Curran is still here and she's got positions available. 9 is the clarification of the hiring freeze. Board members should have on their table or in their packet, on the table, 2 sheets of paper.
Yes.
One that says status of position impacted by the hiring freeze, and the other says vacant positions and their financial impact. It was, they just put it on your desk, Jeff.
There you have it.
Do you have any extra copies? Thank you. Mr. Sealer, you can share with me. You got them? Okay. And I think the board had discussed during our work sessions the hiring freeze and to kind of make sure we could get a handle on the budget and where it was going. I asked Mr. Cully to put together the financial impacts, and you can share mine, and how long those positions had been opened. A couple of those positions are mandated. I think there was a fire and rescue position that's mandated. We can't really not fill that one because it's grant funded. You got it? Okay. The utilities director, we kind of said we were going to do that. The utilities record clerk was actually a position that was occupied on March 26th, and that person has since resigned. So from what the board had been saying, it was my understanding that we were going to fill positions that were vacated after the freeze, but we weren't going to hire any new positions. So I think that's what the purpose of this is, to understand what the board really wants to do. So how does the board wish to handle this? I'm pretty sure we're going to go with the treasurer's prorated position. I'm looking for agreements first. Okay, so we're going to do treasurer's.
I thought we said that in the budget work session.
We did, but Mrs. Curran came back again to make sure we remembered what we said, and I think we're remembering what we said. So the prorated position, all of the positions were basically, except for the 2 deputies, were recently open. I don't know. Major Mosier, can you help me, please?
Yes, sir.
When we put the freeze in place, there were 2 sheriff road deputy positions that had been vacant since October.
That's correct.
Why were they vacant so long?
Because you cut our budget and said we had to find the money somewhere so we would not fill that position in order to take care of the cuts last year.
We cut his budget last year.
Yeah, you cutting over $1 million out. Remember, we went back and made cuts to everybody. When the school got cut $350, every other department were cut some amounts.
Yep. But we couldn't freeze it back then. It takes a couple months for the hiring process, which we're in the middle of doing right now. And then the freeze came about. We're in the final interviews of the process.
I think the sheriff did say he was
Yes, sir.
almost ready to make an offer to somebody.
That's correct.
Okay.
We recently lost a part-time court bailiff, which we were going to replace it with 2 additional bailiffs to try to maintain the 29 hours versus over 30 hours, which is going to be a problem for all of us if we have to offer benefits, just like every other business is doing. But now that the freeze is here, we can't hire anybody, so you'll probably be offering benefits.
How many road deputies do you have right now?
Total?
Total.
46 in the entire department.
46 road deputies?
In the entire department.
In the entire department.
Sheriff all the way down.
Okay, 46
Sheriff all the way down.
employees, right?
Sworn deputies,
Okay.
not counting animal control. Even though they're deputies, they're animal control.
And do you recall, there's some board members that probably recall, how many deputies the comp board says we should have?
I want to say it was 27. For codified responsibilities, the sheriff is responsible for civil process, court security, and transports by the Code of Virginia. Those are the amount of deputies you need in order to do just those functions. If you don't want us to respond to crimes and work criminal investigations and all that other stuff, give us 27. But you have to establish your own police department. That's kind of how that works.
Richmond does that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so you're saying the other 19 are investigators,
Yes, sir.
crime solvers,
Right.
and all those things. Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you, Major Mosier.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate the clarification. Any discussion? How does the board want to look at these? I think you can see the financial impact of all these.
Mr. Chairman, the part-time positions I know are critical due to the whole healthcare situation that's